All right, so Charles Oliveira has failed to make weight for his main event clash against Justin Gaethje at UFC 274 tonight, and as a result, he has been stripped of his belt. He has lost his lightweight title to the scales. But is Charles Oliveira to blame? Or is there someone else that needs to take responsibility for this? Let's talk about it before we do. My name is Rahul J. Chan. This is The Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. So look, before I start pointing fingers and blaming everyone else apart from Charles Oliveira, I think the primary focus needs to remain on Charles Oliveira, because the fact is he weighed in 0.5 pounds over the limit and he had an hour to shift that weight and he failed. He wasn't able to do it. Why is that? Is it a physical issue or a mental issue? Is it because he was physically so depleted he didn't have that 0.5 in him to give away? Did he try everything but that weight just wouldn't shift because he was that dehydrated he just couldn't lose that weight physically? Or is it a mental thing? Because we know he's missed weight 4 times previously, and I know that was at the featherweight, in the featherweight division, but he's lost weight, he's missed weight before. And is it because mentally he doesn't have the will that he needs to take him to a place that he needs to go in order to lose that weight? Is that why he couldn't do it? Because on this occasion, he's had the experiences of not making weight previously, but not with the repercussions that this instance brings, losing his title and all of the benefits that come with that. So I suppose those are the two things that are kind of circulating in my mind at the moment. Like why couldn't he lose that 0.5 given what's at stake, right? And I suppose the other thing that you need to consider is, how does this impact his performance tonight? Like, how does this affect his motivation going into this fight against Justin Gaethje, knowing that whatever happens, he can't walk out of there as the champion, right? And obviously on that front, only time will tell. But like I said at the start of this video, I'm going to be doing a lot of finger pointing. And the first thing I need to say, right, is you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to notice a pattern emerge with regards to all of the results from the weigh-ins yesterday. The amount of fighters that weighed in 0.5 over the weight limit for their weight division, it's a bit of a coincidence, right? Looking through the list, there's so many fighters that weighed in 0.5 over. Even to the point where Norma Dumont, who missed weight and as a result has to give up a percentage of her purse, she weighed in at 146.5. Now, if that extra 0.5 wasn't there, she wouldn't have missed weight and she wouldn't have had to give up a percentage of her purse. Now, I've heard kind of people talk about how there was calibration issues between a scale that they were using either in the hotel or behind the scenes, and how the weights were coming out different to what actually happened during the official weigh-ins, right? But the other thing that I need to kind of talk about is every single weigh-in that I've seen for a UFC event, someone comes in below the limit for their weight class. So say someone's fighting at 155 pounds, they'll come in at 154.5. They'll come in at 134.5. Rose Namajunas will come in at 114.5, right? Not one single fighter has come in underneath championship weight for their weight division. Every single fighter has either come in bang on weight or 0.5 over. So that firstly kind of gives credence to the talk of issues with scales, right? Issues between how different scales are measuring weight. Now, the other thing that I kind of have a difficult time reconciling is when you're someone like Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje, for that matter, when you spend all of this time and effort during your camp, when you spend the money that they probably have to spend to make sure the camp goes as well as it possibly can, and that includes trainers and nutritionists and food and supplements, etc., to make sure that the body is operating at the best it possibly can, whilst obviously also having to cut all of this weight. If there is an issue with the calibration of different scales in different locations, giving fighters different information, that they have to go in this mad rush to try and lose this weight. Like, as a fighter, you have to be so meticulous about planning your camp and preparing for a fight. And something that can be subject to human error in terms of the calibration of two different scales has such a detrimental effect on your career. And it's outside of your control. That doesn't seem right to me. That doesn't sit right with me. And that brings me on to kind of where I look at the UFC in all of this. Now, this whole missing championship weight and the repercussions behind it is residue from boxing, right? This is what happens in boxing. If you don't make championship weight, you lose your belt. But in boxing, you have an athletic commission that is operating under the guidance of a governing body, and those sanctions are dictated by the governing body. So, for example, the WBC, Tyson Fury against Dillian White, which is a bad example because they're heavyweights, so they don't have a weight limit. But just say, for argument's sake, that they had to make, I don't know, 250 pounds, and Tyson Fury came in at 251 pounds. It's the WBC that mandate these rules and say, well, he needs to be stripped of his belt. In these circumstances, we don't have an independent body that is dictating these rules. We don't. It's just the UFC that has full control over their own title, right? But they kind of divert the control of that on this one issue, making weight, right? So they I'm not explaining this very well. Like, it's up to them who fights for the title. It's up to them who's ranked where in each division. It's up to them, like, who's the number one contender. It's up to them who gets fast tracked, like Kamzat. It's up to them who has to continue fighting, fight after fight after fight after fight, like Leon Edwards had to, right? But this is the one issue, making weight, that they don't control. And it doesn't make sense to me, because they do control it, right? They do control it, but they just choose not to. They choose not to. And in this instance, if it's a case of human error that has had this impact on Charles Oliveira and meant that he's lost the belt that he's worked years and years and years to gain, then something needs to be done about it. And look, this feeds into what Tony Ferguson was saying earlier on in the week, where he was moaning about the regrets that he's got being a fighter on the UFC roster, and about how he was a team player and how he regrets some of the things that he did, and how he feels he's been treated by the UFC. That's on a kind of individual basis. But the UFC, they need to grab control of this. Like, I'm not saying right now that they should turn around and change the rules, but they need to sit down and have a look and say, look, why does it make sense, right? If a fighter can, say a fighter operates at lightweight and they fight 8 times en route to getting a title shot, they can fight those 8 times at 156 pounds and nothing is made of it. There's no issue. There's no harm. No one cares. But the one time that fighter has to fight for the actual belt, he has to make bang on 155 pounds. Shouldn't the privilege sit with the title and the title fight? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, honestly, like, there's no leeway whatsoever. You actually make it more difficult for the more important fight on the card. And this is just talking from a commercial standpoint. If I'm kind of thinking from the UFC's perspective, like, where is the value in this, right? Why are we adding more risk to our events? We already have a lot of risk where fighters get injured during camp and, things of that nature. Why are we adding another hurdle for these guys to have to jump to to have a fight that had so much at stake before, but now it's lost some of its shine because one of the guys, if he wins, doesn't get to raise the belt. Doesn't get to have Dana White wrap the belt around his waist. Like, I feel like I didn't kind of talk about the fact that in boxing you have independent governing bodies that put these sanctions in place, and these are the rules that you have to follow. Not to mention that in boxing, the weight classes, the gaps between weight classes are much smaller, right? So fighters aren't cutting as much weight. It doesn't make sense to me where the UFC are its own governing body that they choose to keep implementing this rule. They're so specific about this rule when they love bending their own rules as and when a big star is at stake. John Jones fails a drugs test. Let's move the fucking event. It's only picograms. Do you know what I mean? Khabib has a dodgy weigh-in in Abu Dhabi. Nobody bats an eyelid. No one cares. But the fact that all of these fighters yesterday weighed in 0.5 over the championship weight for their weight class, I feel as though Charles Oliveira has been hard done by. I feel as though that he's taken he's taken one for the team. Like is he going to lose his pay-per-view points for the fight tonight? He's definitely lost any opportunity of winning a bonus, and that fight is very likely to be fight of the night. He's lost a percentage of his purse. There's so many financial implications at stake. And it feels as though there's a very good possibility that it's not even his fault. Someone else has made an error. But aside from that, this is a lesson that the UFC have to learn from. And they don't have to be so stringent on this. Because it's their fucking belt. It's their rules. They can do what they want. As they do in any other instance within the sport. So there's nothing stopping them from doing what they want here when it comes to making weight. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. And this is just another thing that you can add to the ever-growing list of UFC fighters and things that they can have a grievance with the UFC. Another thing that can be added to the multiple things that Tony Ferguson raised earlier this week. It's just a bitter pill to swallow. And I just can't get my head around why this is still a thing. When it comes to the UFC, like, either everyone needs to hit championship weight for every single fight, in my opinion, or we get rid of this. If you're fighting for a title, you have to make championship weight. Like I say, that's from boxing. This isn't boxing. There is no independent governing body overseeing all of this shit. This is the UFC doing what they want when they want in every other aspect of the sport. Why not with this? Why not with this? The one thing that can benefit the fighters. Why not? 0.5 of a pound. Do you think anyone on this card or in the roster would moan if they change that rule? Do you think anyone will say, no, actually, I think we should keep it the way it is because I really like cutting that extra pound and making the actual championship weight limit? I don't know, man. I don't get it. I was picking Charles Oliveira before all of this happened. And I know I haven't made a preview video, but I just felt as though Charles Oliveira just has more tools than Justin Gaethje. Although I feel Justin Gaethje's tools are a lot more dangerous, right? So I feel like Justin Gaethje has the more danger, and if he lands his punches or if his leg kicks start chopping away at Charles Oliveira. But I think Charles Oliveira has the more tools in his arsenal. And he has more ways of hurting Justin Gaethje. And I felt as though Charles Oliveira was going to win tonight. Or is going to win tonight. I felt as though Justin Gaethje's skill set sometimes gets overplayed. Like sometimes wins can age really well, right? And sometimes wins, when you look back, don't age as well. And I feel as though the win against Tony Ferguson surprised a lot of people, myself included. But the version of Tony Ferguson that we've seen since kind of tells me that either Tony Ferguson just wasn't the same old Tony Ferguson stepping into that octagon against Justin Gaethje, or That's the fight that made Tony Ferguson not look like Tony Ferguson since, right? And my instincts are telling me it's the former. I feel as though Justin Gaethje beat a Tony Ferguson that was over the hill, right? And I feel as though even the fight against Michael Chandler, like Gaethje was hurt on a number of occasions, and Gaethje has this kind of, to me, it feels as though he has this persona of a fighter that is very difficult to beat, but he's very easy to hit. And Charles Oliveira is very, very improved in the striking department. I felt as though Charles Oliveira is going to win tonight, and I feel like I'm going to stick to it. I think I might put money on it. If the odds have changed, I'll put money on Charles Oliveira. I think he still wins. And if that happens, that will kind of make it very tasty what happens next in the lightweight division. Aside from that, I'll quickly run through a couple of other quick hitters, quick predictions. Rose Namajunas against Carla Esparza. I think Rose Namajunas wins this. She's just grown exponentially in all areas of the game. It's a nice fight for Rose Namajunas because obviously she had that fight against Carla Esparza in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter to crown the first ever strawweight champion, then she lost. If Carla Esparza wins, it'll be a nice moment, man, because Carla Esparza is someone that years ago had to sell her Harley Davidson bike that she got as the winner of The Ultimate Fighter because she got injured and she was running out of money. And if she wins tonight, it will be almost like this kind of redemption story for her, that it all paid off in the end, you know? It'll be a nice little moment for her. But I still think Rose Namajunas wins. Michael Chandler against Tony Ferguson. It feels as though Tony Ferguson is going in there for an execution. Now, I spoke about his kind of media week press conference and the things that he was saying. I feel as though Michael Chandler just does him. Shogun against OSP. I hope Shogun wins, although that dad bod is dad bodding even more now. Donald Cerrone against Joe Lozon. I feel as though Joe Lozon just has more in the tank left than compared to Donald Cerrone, so I think Joe gets it done. But yeah, that's me. That's all I need to talk about tonight. I'm going to go to the hospital now and visit my nan. It's her 90th birthday. I got these with me to celebrate her birthday. Look, I'm going to put this on. Happy birthday. But anyway, look, I'm going to go now. I'll talk to you guys next time. I'll tell you what, I'll make a video post on Monday because tomorrow I'm going to the Arsenal. Early in the morning, I'm going to be drunk as hell, so I won't be able to make nothing tomorrow. But on Monday, I will. Shut up, Pablo. All right, I'll catch you guys next time.